Rev up your engines! Okay, today we got a problem that's common to many people. A check engine light that comes on, that goes off. When it comes on, it shows cylinder number 2 is misfiring. Been to a bunch of mechanics. They've changed fuel injectors, but it's still doing it. Now, to begin with, check engine lights can come on and off because here's how they work. When you're driving down the road, the computer does a bunch of tests. If it sees a problem, and it sees a problem occur a few times in a row, puts a check engine light on. But if you drive it around some more, and say generally about 10 to 20 cycles of the trip, if it doesn't see the problem again, it turns the stupid check engine light off. So it can get complicated. Now, like I said, as we look under the hood, it's had fuel injectors changed, spark plugs, didn't fix the problem. Now, they told me it was cylinder number 2 that was misfiring. That's this cylinder here. This is the number 2 cylinder on this 3.4 liter engine. But as I always say, you can't trust anybody. You got to see it yourself. So I'm going to hook up my scan tool. Don't ever take people's words. Get the data. So here we go. It's detecting the system. We'll do a standalone diagnosis. Pontiac Grand Am 4-door. That's all we can do a topology scan. So here we go. Now while that's scanning, we'll kind of look around. These were decent looking cars in their day. And the interesting thing about this is she's the original owner of the car. So she knows everything that's happened to it. Hasn't been wrecked, flooded, anything like that, which is a big help. Now it's got 3 codes. Now the RFA, the remote function, we probably won't care at all, but we might as well look at it. B1327, device power circuit low. Now in this case, a bad battery can give you low voltage, so let's check that first. And in this case, it says recharge. State of charge is 36% and the health is 58%. So basically it needs a new battery, but that's because this thing's been having so many problems. They haven't been driving it much, and you saw it said recharge and retest. That'll have to be done. It'll have to be recharged and retested. Odds are that's not the underlying problem. That's just because the thing's been sitting. You'll often get that code when it sits a lot and isn't driven. I doubt if that's the problem. For the time being, we'll erase this code. Now we'll go to the other code, that's the powertrain codes. Now, as you can see, it's got a historical trouble code of fuel pump relay circuit and engine misfire. Freeze frame data. The fuel pump relay, the first failure when it was barely moving at all, and it said the engine speed was 0 RPM. So it acted up before the engine was even started. Now, he said it had a misfire cylinder number 2, but it's actually a random misfire here. So we will look at the freeze frame data for that. And in this case, it was just idling. It was an open loop, so it just started, and it was going 0 miles an hour again. So we're going to start with a fuel pump relay. If it's bad, it can cause all these problems. So I went to the auto parts store and I plugged it in. I'll show you. I'll put another relay. We're going to road test it. I reset the codes. We'll see if anything comes back while we're driving it. Seems to run perfectly fine. It's not misfiring. Everything's smooth. We'll rescan it after the road test, and we'll see what happens. You can see so far nothing has come back, which is good. Now in this case, the relay is pretty simple. You go to the fuse box, and when you look inside, it says relay number 18, which in this case is right here. This is the new one. This was the old one. You just pick it up, and you plug the new one in. Make sure it's nice and tight. Now these are computerized relays. They go bad all the time, but here is a warning. Now, this relay could have gone bad on its own, but it supplies power to the fuel pump. If the fuel pump is going out, it can also make this go bad. Generally, if fuel pump's going out, you'll lose high speed. It won't go great, and this goes okay high speed. It had the problems when you're starting it up, and then the other problem of the misfire was at 0 miles an hour, the car was only running at like 800 RPM. It was idling, and it tripped the misfire code. Now, if the fuel pump doesn't pump the right amount of fuel to the engine, it will misfire. Misfiring isn't necessarily a spark problem. You can have all the spark in the world. If you have the wrong amount of fuel, it's not going to burn right, and it is going to misfire because of not enough fuel. Now, people guess with the new fuel injector, it didn't fix it. They guessed with all kinds of stuff. They should have looked at the raw data better like I did, seeing that there's a voltage problem in this system and that there's a misfiring, but they both occurred that when the engine was either just trying to start or was just idling, because the speedometer was 0 in both cases. In the electrical short, the engine wasn't even running. It was 0 RPM. In the case of the misfire, it had to be running to misfire, but it was only idling like, I don't know, 800 RPM or something, right? That's the logical conclusion I came to. Now, this thing is old. It's 22 years old. I wouldn't be surprised if they'd have to replace the fuel pump in the future. It's a GM product. Wouldn't shock me at all. But this shows why you have to start with the logical things. Let's say the problem comes back on them. The next thing I'd say, replace the fuel pump. This feeds the fuel pump. If the fuel pump is going bad, it could have shorted this out, but they do go bad just randomly. It hasn't burnt the code back yet, and I've been driving it around. You need to analyze the data correctly. Don't listen to what other people tell you, because this didn't have a number 2 misfire. It had a random misfire. Random misfires generally occur when something affects the whole system. In this case, it would have been no electricity right to the pump's not getting the right amount of fuel, all the cylinders are misfire, and you will get a PO300, which is random intermittent misfire. And here's some bonus questions and answers. GM is now losing money in China. For a while, they were making lots of money. The Chinese loved Buicks. They didn't say Buick, but they had the Buick logo. They sold a bunch of cars. Well, the first quarter of 2024, GM lost $106 million in China. They used to be making money. Now they're losing money. Guess what? The Chinese are buying Chinese cars now. Now this is a big deal because this is only their third quarterly loss in China. In the last 15 years, all the other quarters they made money, right? Now, of course, there's tensions between the United States and China that's going to add into it. In the recent past, Mary Barr, the head of GM, her philosophy was, if we're not making money, we're pulling out. So they pulled out a bunch of Asian countries, GM, and they're not making and selling cars there anymore. But China's a different story. Now, here's what she says, you know, it always goes, don't listen to the horse manure that comes out of their mouths, follow the money. She says, over the long term, we're committed to China. We believe it's a market that in the medium term will have substantial growth. We believe will, yeah. A lot of questions on this stuff, right? Hey, for a while, they had a thing going. Chinese like GM cars. Now, guess what? They're buying their own cars. Why would it be any different than here in the United States? They would rather support their own country than another country. Here's the nonsense that they come with. Listen to this. They attributed the first quarter loss to production downtime designed to reduce built-up vehicle inventory. Let's translate that into English, right? They couldn't sell the crap that they made, so they're making less of it now. Yeah, that doesn't sound like a good strategy to me, right? GM's been pulling out a lot of places. 2017, they sold its European operations to Stellantis. They ended domestic production operations in Russia, India, Thailand, and Australia. They're pulling out when they're not making money. Well, now they're not making money in China, but that's a big deal, right? They don't sell that many cars in Russia and Australia, India, and Thailand, right? But China's a big market. China and the United States are the biggest markets for GM. They can't pull out their second biggest market, right? And interesting enough, their joint sales in China, which was SAC Motors and Wuling Motors, that was 60% of the vehicles they sold in China. They weren't GM, they were a consortium of them and Chinese companies. So you can see the handwriting on the wall. The Chinese companies will be the ones that'll be selling this stuff. Let's face it, at least on paper, it's a communist country, right? Even though it's really a capitalist dictatorship. But they can say whatever they want. They could just nationalize it and take GM's factories if they wanted to, right? So they're in a very precarious position in China anyway. And now that they're losing money there, hey, it might be a big changer here. Well, they have electric jets now that they're working on. And this company, Lilium, it says it has an order from Florida, a company called Urban Link, to put 20 of these electric vertical takeoff and landing jets, little commuting jets, into service in Florida, and they're going to do little jump stuff, right? Well, now, they ordered them, right? They said it's not going to be till 2027 that they're up and running. Who knows? We've seen so many promises from companies like that. It would be the first U.S. airline to actually have electric planes flying around. And they ordered 20 of them, right? Now, this Lilium, the company's from Munich, Germany. It's been around for 9 years, and they've been working on them. They have a staff of about 1,000 people, including 500 aerospace engineers. So it's not some fly-by-night thing, right? This is futuristic stuff. They say, well, they'll be flying people around by 2027 in 3 years. Who knows, right? What I always love about this stuff is they give you the information and the news, but there's nothing that says, what is the range? How long does it take to recharge the batteries? They give you no technical information whatsoever. What they cost, they don't give you that information. To me, this stuff is more like a press release that these companies are dying for more money to go in. Well, we're selling 20 of them to this company in Florida, trying to get more people to invest in the thing. I wouldn't hold my breath on that one. Right? They didn't even give the information how far do they actually go when they're full of passengers, what happens if the batteries go bad. As usual, anything that's to do with electric, they kind of cloak everything in secrecy and then pretend they got a whole bunch of sales that, oh yeah, look, it's up and running. It's not up and running yet. 2027, they said it would be. Let's see 2027 if they actually are flying around. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.